Are you thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, but you don't know where to start? Have you searched for a realtor who will be nearby when they are needed, who will answer your calls and emails, who will go the extra mile to ensure your every need is met, who will help you with sourcing and supplying contractors while negotiating the best deal possible? Do you need a realtor who does not believe in high-pressure sales tactics or other gimmicks? Then you need me. My name is Steve Roy, and I offer a full-service professional sales and customized marketing package for my clients. I am helping clients with buying, selling, and investing. I will build a custom plan to fit your needs. I will work closely with you to ensure that you achieve your goals. My services include not only an analysis of your local market and correct pricing, but I will also help you to prepare your home for sale and make it look as desirable as possible to buyers by providing expert advice, using professional quality photographs, and compelling descriptions. Let me help you minimize cost and maximize your profits. Call me today, 207-649-8522.
And I came here in 1986 to run it for myself, and I signed the papers, and I was owner of the Red Barn Incorporated. People come in here for the experience, more so than I think anything else. And they love the fact that somebody's actually taking the time to listen. Maybe you learn in proportion to how much you listen and care. If you can find that balance between doing what you love that isn't really work, that might pay the bills, and can resonate with people, and actually to some extent help people. Without my customers, I would be doing what I don't love, guaranteed.
I mean, there are some. Now you're not on.
And who's that on subcommittees? Kyle?
Right here.
Oh, there we go.
We have not had a full subcommittee meeting since the last time we were here. And I'll take some responsibility because those of us that were in attendance sat down and said, hey, May 9th sounds great, but then I failed to get that notice out to others. So those of us that knew about it were there.
You don't tell people they don't show up. I've done the same thing myself.
I know, it's a busy time of year, that's my excuse, but I do take full responsibility for that. But we did have an opportunity for those of us that were there, which is myself, Carrie, Kathleen, Bill Bachman joined us, and seemed like we had one more. Yeah, and Mr. Chartrand. So we had a chance really to kind of look at that version 2 of the floor plan that we did show you last time, and so we added a couple of things to that, nothing really significant. I had a chance to actually meet with Stephen yesterday. He stopped by because he was in the area, and I shared with him what our conversation was about, but it was really not anything that we need to report at this point in time because there's no significant changes that have happened since the last time we reported out. Right now it's out for feedback from our staff and others that are on our subcommittee to, what do you think about this other alternative floor plan?
Any questions? Chad?
We have not had any meetings since the last one, and I did get a chance to review the last meeting that I missed, the building committee meeting that I missed on YouTube, so thank you for putting that out there. And Stephen, I think, had a lot of the things that we discussed from our last building, or subcommittee meeting in his most recent plan, so no updates.
Performing arts?
Yep, right here. We did have a meeting. We actually had a very good conversation about the proposed reduction to a 500-seat performing arts center. It was myself, Joel Selwood, Corey Dow, Paula Pooler, Chad, and Haley Barrett, our student representative. And, sorry, did I miss? Oh, and Carrie, sorry. I'm bad. We have some real concerns with going forward with a reduction to 500, primarily because elementary concerts are already at 500 people attendance. If the renovation has the desired effect of attracting families to the area, we feel that would be an underbuild. And we feel that it would be a real problem to not at least try for what we want. So we brainstormed a lot of possible avenues toward moving forward with a 600-seat performing arts center while still being incredibly cost conscious, which for us primarily became, is there any way to do it at the lowest possible price tag that would not involve an elevator? Because that's not only a big chunk of change to put it in, but then we have the yearly contract of maintaining it. So we discussed things like the creative expansion of the footprint, perhaps an angled wall, to get more size at minimum cost. We spitballed things like even including a bleacher section at the back of the house, such as some performing arts centers do, or even just building in with some empty space that could eventually be filled with chairs. And we did send a couple of specific questions. We boiled it down to, what's the cost difference between a 600-seat house with no elevator, maintaining that more gentle slope in the house seats, than the original proposed 600-seat house? And how could we possibly add some more seats with minimum change to the footprint and minimum change to the cost? Perhaps a couple more back rows or a couple more side rows. And I sent those to Mr. Blatt, and he responded that it's ballpark, it wasn't a firm figure, about $100,000 for 100 seats. So we feel,
Excuse
is
me,
that,
it's $100,000 for 50 seats.
oh, okay, that was not what, is it Darren? Okay, sorry about that.
Isn't that not what he said? Is that
It
not
is
what he
not.
said?
Oh, yes, it is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I misread. It is 100,000 per 50 seats above toward the 500. Okay, in my mind, I was like, wow, that sounds really good. Yeah,
I like
still
her
sounds
price
good. So we feel that that's something that needs to be discussed tonight with the full building committee. But as a committee, we feel very strongly that we should try to move forward towards 600 seats.
Is there any state requirement for an elevator?
It's not a state requirement, it's an ADA requirement. If you, any student who needs access to the control booth needs to have handicapped access.
You don't have to have an elevator.
But that's only with the steeper slope, right?
Yeah, if you steepen the slope of the house beyond 1 inch and 12 inches, then you have to have handicapped access to it, which is an elevator.
Okay. Publicity, Ray Karen?
Yeah, we haven't met since the last meeting, I think the day before the last meeting, and so some of our things, one of the things that was done is Mr. Boardman did interview Mr. Blatt, and I heard that went very well. Steve said it himself, it went very well, so hopefully, I haven't seen it yet, but hopefully I'll see it in the next couple of days. Also, Jen, can you update us on the Facebook page?
Sure, thank you. If you wouldn't mind, I'll give you the updates, but if you have a mobile device, would you mind turning it on and logging onto Facebook and turning off your Wi-Fi so that you can get to Facebook? Thanks, I appreciate it, guys. So we actually did have a meeting, right? I know you probably forgot the date, but it was May 2nd. And we discussed a lot about the Facebook and where we're at. Right now, or as of the last meeting, basically, 2 weeks, we were stalled at 246 likes on the page, which is not a huge audience, especially there's probably 6,000 adults in the town of Winslow. So I really want to get that number up. I know Ray had passed out some instructions on how you all could help with that at the last meeting, but I just want to walk you through it real quick because it will make a big difference. I did an experiment myself just in the last couple of days. I had just 4 of my friends do what I'm about to do with you and invite their friends, which means their friends are going to get notification about this page and an invite to like it. And in just 24 hours, with these 4 friends, we're up 50 likes. So this is effective, so we're going to do it in a minute. We talked about sponsored posts on Facebook, what to sponsor. We'd like to post some of the videos and the newest drawings and just monitor the traffic and see what does the best and then push it at a later time, we'll decide. We talked about the public meeting. I believe it's still scheduled for, or planned for, the 24th of this month. As I understand it, after this meeting, there will be an update made to town council. We'll get input back from town council and we do all of that before a press release is made. We'll need to get the word out for the public meeting on the 24th, if that's still planned. So I'm hoping at the end of this meeting, there might be a short, full committee discussion as to what we're doing. So, specifically, we also had information back from the Facebook page, actually from Lynn. She wasn't able to be here last meeting, but the meeting before. She mentioned about locker rooms for the 7th, 8th grade sports teams. They may not use it for gym, but they have it for football, etc. And I know that, Stephen, you made note of it on that date, but it wasn't mentioned in the last meeting, so we're just wondering where we're at there. Also, we thought that contacting junior high coaches for input would be a good idea for that, and to speak with some key athletic persons. I'm not sure if that was done yet, but we suggested Jason and Amanda McCaslin for Parks and Rec, so I'm not sure if that was done yet. And by the way, I decided not to push post the videos and the newest drawings yet because I really want to get the numbers on the page before I do that. I'd like to do it tonight with you all and watch the page for the weekend and then post so we get a bigger audience when we do that. We don't want to post now, then double our audience and they haven't seen all that stuff. They can always look, but will they? And I have some questions about some things that were mentioned as for interview videos, and I'm just wondering if these have been done. Mr. Price, were you contacted about who families that had shopped? Window shopped for schools and chose Winslow? Were you contacted about that?
I have been videotaped.
Yes.
But that was not the topic of what I
Right.
talked about.
I saw it. So have you given a list to anyone? Were you asked for a list?
No.
Okay, I'll talk with you. Thank you. And there's still some other ideas for videos, so I'd like to see if that can still happen. Everybody got their phone? If you don't want to do it, you don't have to, don't worry. But if you would, I'd so appreciate it. Okay, so go to Facebook. Go to the Winslow School. Winslow School building. Let me know when you're there.
There's a school building and reorganization, right?
Got it. Anybody getting there? Are you okay? Okay, great. So once you're on the page, if you can just scroll the page up a little bit, you're gonna see an underlined home, events, reviews, about, videos. Do you see that bar? And the directions are a little bit different if you're on like a laptop or anything, and I can show you. But that little bar, if you could just scroll it to the left so that you see on the far right community. Everybody got that? Press community, and there's a little bar in the middle that says invite friends to like this page. Push that. And you don't need to do this part now, just shut your phone off now. But after this meeting, please go back to this page. When you open up Facebook, you'll see you're still here. And look down through your list. It's all your friends here, and if they live in Winslow, push invite. I promise you, 4 people I had do it just in the last day or 2, and we have 50 likes from that. So it will grow this page a lot. So thank you. That's all I have. Any questions?
What's the likes right now on the page?
The likes right now, we're up to 300.
300?
246 as of 2 days ago, and 300 today.
Okay, construction management, Eric.
I'm still trying to get to the Facebook page.
If you can't do it, please come see me after. I would love to get you there, please. Thank you. Thank you. You don't.
I love Facebook. I'm going to defer this one off to Steve because he knows the timelines better than I. I told you the last time we did get approval for construction management, so I'll leave this report up to Steve, where we're at with it.
We advertised for interest. We have received several notes of interest. We have contacted several of the firms whom we know provide CM services, just to let them know. The deadline for response is the end of next week. And as soon as that response comes in, We will want to evaluate them, meet with you, select a series of construction managers to interview. One of the construction managers who submitted is not on BGS's, the Bureau of General Services, pre-qualified list. Doesn't mean they can't be pre-qualified, it's just that they didn't submit all of the stuff you have to submit to get a status pre-qualified. So we're asking around, we want to make sure that people know that the project is a serious one, and that it'll be, we hope it's out on the streets a year from now, ready to build. So that's our progress. We'll know more in a week.
Okay, discussion on how much we can afford to bond.
Yes, we have been talking for a while about trying to do this debt neutral. And one of the things that depended on is finding savings within the operational budget. And this came up at the last combined town council, school board meeting where we were talking about the budget. And my question was, if we're having a hard time even trying to make the operational budget work, then what are we gonna face when it comes time to bond? And one of the things, Ken, that I believe you put out back in January, when we met, I think the very first time with the town council, was that the town was going to retire a Crow rope bond in FY17, as was the high school retiring a $113,000 bond, and that would free up $430,500. And then the municipality wanted to use 133 of that to fund a $2 million infrastructure bond, roads and storm drains and that sort of thing. So if there's 500, and 133 of it's gonna be used for infrastructure, that's gonna leave slightly less than 300,000. And that's including the 112,000 that the schools retired. That 112,000 isn't now available. It's being sucked up by the lack of revenues that we have. So you take that 112,000 out, and you're now down to somewhere in the vicinity of 160,000. I went through, finally, could get my nose out of budget books, so I had some time to go through and do an analysis of what I think we could save by closing the junior high school, and a really aggressive, and I mean really aggressive, so aggressive that I really wouldn't put this forth, but I wanted you to know just how bad the situation is. A really aggressive savings analysis would get us $239,279. And when I say really aggressive, I mean that's assuming 5 full positions of attrition when we move. So that's 239,000 roughly, 160,000 left out of what Ken, you had presented, that's 399,000. You might remember that I did some amortization work earlier on, and that we needed roughly on a 30-year note, we did 600,000 for a $10 million bond. So as I'm looking at it right now, if the municipality is absolutely serious about being debt neutral in trying to do this, we're somewhere in the vicinity of $200,000 short. And I would say we're actually more than that, because this is way too aggressive on what I put together. I think a lot of it was, I just say, okay, how bad is it? How close could we get if we suffered that kind of attrition loss? I don't frankly think we can suffer the kind of attrition loss that I was talking about, not that much.
Do you know what positions you'd be cutting? You said 5. Do you know what they are? You don't want to share them?
Correct.
Okay.
Questions?
Has that taken into account if we decide to demo the junior high building?
That is not.
And what that was looking at, what, like $1 million to demo that? If we decide to go that way?
Yeah, possibly between 700,000 to $1 million. but we're also looking at other options as far as demolition. It might give us a lower cost. And the other thing I'm doing, hopefully I'll start it tomorrow, is doing an RFQ, request for qualifications, for people to submit proposals on what they might be willing to do with the junior high. So in other words, instead of us tearing it down at a hefty price tag, perhaps it could be repurposed by another entity. And we might benefit from that by the rented space for the school department, maybe Parks and Rec and so forth. So there's a couple of things that we're still looking at. I'm hoping to avoid the demolition costs.
I think there'd be a lot of pushback on demolition. That building has been there a long time, and it's really in decent shape. It's not fantastic, but it is in decent shape. The janitors take really good care of it, and maintenance is kept up on it. I think we could do better than tearing it down. If there are other uses that we could come up with, that would probably help some with this construction. But while you're already started it, you will know in a short period of time whether or not anything is gonna develop from that.
So as far as the RFQ goes, once I get it written, I'll share it with the committee that's working on that, and we'll come up with a timeline and send it out and see what happens. Keep our fingers crossed.
One of the things that I had said to Mike, if the building stays, is that the AOS 92 pays $75,000 worth of rent a year for the two superintendent's buildings that we're in. We have a 5,000 square foot building in Waterville, and we have a 2,500 square foot in Winslow. The Winslow office is owned by the Winslow Public Schools. The Waterville office is owned by the Waterville Public Schools. So AOS 92, this entity, this cyberspace entity that owns nothing and has no teachers and no students and all of that, pays $50,000 to Waterville annually to use that building, and it pays $25,000 to the Winslow Public Schools. We would like to get into one office area. I mean, it is a real hardship having our offices. We thematically broke the offices up such that curriculum assessment and special ed are in the Winslow office, and payroll, accounts payable, transportation, and maintenance are in the Waterville office. And it works, but it's not like having everybody together such that when I want to talk to my assistant, I can walk down the hallway, or we can meet for a coffee at the coffee machine, and oh, by the way, I just got a call from so-and-so. There's a lot of information that you exchange just by rubbing elbows with each other. So I'd love to be able to get our organization back into one office complex, which obviously the old junior high would afford us that kind of space. And that would be a guaranteed income every year.
It's just my opinion that any entity that takes over the building or the maintenance of the building, it cannot cost the town any appreciative money, because any cost that that building in the future has is going to take away from, in my opinion, this project.
I agree.
So it's just,
It doesn't make sense for us to be the landlord of a building that we're then moving out of because of there's issues in it. Because it has a steam boiler, because there's roof leaks, because it's ADA, not ADA certified. So on my end, personally, I agree with Ray. Doesn't make sense to then be the landlord of a building that we have issues with.
And the RFQ would leave us as the landlord. We would convey the building, ownership of the building, to possibly a nonprofit that would manage and run the building.
But then we wouldn't have any say of what goes in the building? And
Well,
where it's so close to the school, I mean.
It depends on how and that's why the RFQ in the discussion, we'll have control over what goes in there. The RFQ is gonna ask people to give us their suggestions. And so, and the way I'm structuring the RFQ is, we'll invite people to actually submit proposals. So after we go through the RFQ, if we find two or more that we like, we'll send an invitation for them to actually submit, a legitimate proposal with details and financials and so forth, and then we can make a decision based on that.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Do you have a list of specific organizations in the area the RFQ is going out to, or is it gonna be public?
It'll be public. But I also intend to reach out to find out what organizations might be interested, so I can send them a personal invitation to respond to the RFQ. So it'll be focused as well as broad.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would suggest that we really need to carry this conversation a little further at this point, because we have coming up scheduled a public session.
24th.
And I'm kind of at a loss of what we do with a public session if we're saying that we're not sure we can even afford this. Do we do it and continue to just keep waiting to see if we can afford to do this? Do we put that on hold and then spend some time with municipality and deciding whether or not they're willing to change on the debt neutral? And I'm just kind of at a loss at this point.
The term debt neutral, I went back and looked at my notes. The term was mill rate neutral. Because you can't be debt neutral, because if you won't borrow money more than what you've already have for debt, that's an increase. The term we were talking about, the goal, was to talk about mill rate neutral, which then gets at the whole issue of what's the forecast going forward, not only for the school, but also the town. So I think it's really more a process of looking ahead to say, because if you look ahead, we do have other bonds that are maturing in 3 to 4 years, I think 3 years. Not a lot, but a few more. So really what we're trying to get at was this whole idea of mill rate neutral. So if we've got other savings, other bonds being retired. So that's a piece of work that I think we need to do. But because if we don't do mill rate neutral, then we're gonna have to express to the voters when we go out what the mill rate impact is.
And I have looked at that on the school side, hoping that maybe we find something that would be equivalent to that 130 or something, but there's nothing there coming up of any significance.
Can you give an example of like, what does $100,000 teach the mill rate?
Our tax base is 640 million, okay, so 1 mil is 640,000. So 100,000 is 1/6 of that, I guess.
So the 200,000 that we're short, using that previous scenario, is about the same number we were talking about the other night at the council meeting. That was about 1/3 of a mil.
Right. Now, of course, if the legislature moves forward and restores revenue sharing, and I don't wanna go into the weeds on this, restores revenue sharing, we would pick up $500,000 on the municipal side. If they funded K through 12 education at 55%, the number says that's about $700,000 coming back to the Winslow school system. So, there's a solution, which is getting the legislature to fully fund K through 12 education and to restore the municipal revenue sharing, and we'll end up with $1.2 million, which is approximately 2 mils. Now, whether that's gonna happen, we won't know what the movement is until about the middle of June as far as the legislature.
So the same suggestion that we should contact our legislators that we were
Absolutely.
offering a week ago applies.
Very important. Critical.
I've talked to a couple of them, but they won't commit to anything. I mean, it's like you're talking to that wall. You get no response. Send them emails.
And that's when
call
you
them.
say that you're not gonna get my vote when you're up.
I don't think they really care. Some of these guys are so tied into this political system that they think they're indispensable, I guess. Yeah, right.
Would it
Well-
be helpful at all for any kind of petition or anything like that?
Well, I was listening with interest, the whole comment about it getting more folks on Facebook. If you can get that list and ask them to contact the state senator.
I actually put it out the other
representative,
day, I did.
That would be a tremendous help.
It feels like when people have to actually do something, they're less likely to do it, but if you say, here's a pen, so would something like a petition help?
Well, it could, but the legislature's got to pass a budget within statutory adjournment, I think it's June 20th, something like that. So, feeling is around June 15th, in about a month, they will pass the budget, and that's for 2 years. And that budget will be a very good indication as to whether there's gonna be any movement on revenue sharing and education. Of course, we kind of need that just to solve the budget for this year, but at least that would give us an indication as to if there is gonna be a shift from where it's going.
And
So it would help.
And
No
so
question.
2,000 signatures
Sure,
would
absolutely,
help?
sure.
Great, that's how many parents we have in the two different grade
Right.
schools.
And if they could express their support and interest in returning municipal revenue sharing and K-12 education funding, not that we'd be rich, but we got $1.2 million that we can now have a greater degree of latitude to work budgets with. Versus just going back and raising the mill rate.
We went to a meeting, the council last week at the Waterville Auditorium at the high school. Basically, by law, states that 5% of revenue sharing is where we're supposed to be. And if I'm wrong with these numbers, Ken, just off the top of my head, we are now at 2% for revenue sharing. The most optimistic estimate that I have, the increase on revenue sharing was to go from 2 to 3%.
Right.
That's the most optimistic, if everything fell into place. At this particular time, what I'm hearing is that they would be satisfied that everybody's on board with a 0.5% increase in revenue sharing. That's what I hear right now, so to think that we're gonna go from 2 to 5 is probably, even with, I don't know, everything would be optimistic at this point.
That the other factor, and I'm going off on a tangent, which isn't to do with the building, but existing statute says in 2020, they're gonna go back to 5%. So the bill, which is in LD 133, actually goes from 2 to 3, and then the following year goes to 4, so by 2020, it'll be back to 5%. Concern is that the legislature will not honor that and do something else, so I think this year is gonna be a good indicator. If in fact they go from 2 to 3, then that says, well, it'll hopefully get to back to 5 in 2020.
Encouraging support for LD 133 at least puts us in an incremental increase back to that 5%.
It's the 2 to 3, and 3 to 4, and then back to 5 by 2020.
So if you're writing and calling, you can say, please support LD 133
Yep.
and fund education to the 55%.
Right.
LD 133, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Eric's question about public session on May 24th. Should we have that, or should we have a meeting with the council to talk about really, how would we fund the project? What's the likelihood or possibility of a tax increase, what that might look like? Unfortunately, the revenues side is still gonna be up in the air. We're not gonna have the information to figure that out. But so, I've got a couple of councils here, I'm curious, you folks, your thoughts on whether we have the meeting on the 24th, or whether we have a meeting with the council?
I would think we'd want to probably wait until we could actually say whether or not we're going to be doing this.
I'd rather have a meeting with the council. I think it's been really nice that we've planned everything that we want and all the hopes and dreams and everything, and now we're down to crunch time and we don't know how we're gonna pay for this. So it doesn't make any sense to bring it to the public when they say, well, what's the potential mill rate increase, or what is this gonna cost, and we have no idea. So that isn't, we're all out in left field right now, what I think.
So if we have a meeting with the council, which we will, and the school board, and you and Eric, we should be able to hash some of this out, and then present it to a public meeting. Because, yeah, I think the dates you gave me, I think were June 14th or 15th.
Yes,
So we're not that far away.
okay.
It does involve scheduling the next meeting of this committee though, because the 14th, I have a water vote board meeting, so I couldn't make that day. The 15th, we're scheduled to have the next meeting of this committee. So if this committee's willing to put off that date, then we could substitute the council board joint meeting, which I think is a good idea to get it in and talk about long-range planning and financing of this project.
On the 24th or in June?
No,
No,
the
in June.
15th.
15th, June 15th.
June meeting.
Yes.
I think we are where we're at right now. We've done some pretty excellent engineering. We've got input from the subcommittees. We have got a plan in place that, to me, is realistic. But now, how do we fund it? So I think that the council needs to be educated on what the current proposal is and what we're talking about and the justification for what we're asking for. At that point in time, given that we're educated into what we feel the needs of this project are, now the financial end comes in is how do you finance it? And then what are the numbers and what's the future and what's the future planning? So I think it's a combination meeting, one of education, so we can educate all the council as to where we are and why we're there. And then at that point in time, we would be ready at some point in time to say, well, this is the financial aspects of the project. And I think that would be, and then we would have a give and take at that point in time and for future revenue streams that might be able to come in. And I think that's where the meeting should be. It should be a combination meeting. I don't know if you can do both at the same time.
Well, that's
Or
what-
one day, one time do that, and then the next time do the financial part of it.
Well, I think, I don't know, but we're meeting on the 15th, is if everything goes well, June. These are items that we wanted to talk about, so hopefully, Mike will have some information, or the council will have some information that we can work with. I mean, we have a plan, you're right, we have a plan, we know pretty much what we'd like to do, but we still don't know how we're gonna finance it. So we really gotta sit down with both bodies and work this through. I don't think either one of us do it alone.
No, we need to have a joint meeting, there's no question, but I think June 15th is, to wait to have that, I think the sooner the better. I mean, I believe that we're ready to educate the council on the proposal.
Well, I asked the question, if we're not going to have a public meeting on the 24th, why don't we have the meeting on the 24th, or is that gonna be too soon in regards to knowing what state funding is gonna be and whether or not that has at least the council could be educated on what the proposal is. We might not have the funding answers, but at least they'll understand what the project concepts are. We're all penciled in for the 24th as it is now, so maybe that's a good date to do it sooner.
I'm okay with doing it on the 24th.
Yeah. Even though it's a complicated issue, it's relatively straightforward. There are two fundamental approaches and some combination. If we just say that we're gonna borrow X, whether we do a 20-year bond or a 30-year bond, that's kind of a decision. We'd have to look at the interest penalty between the two. But if we said, we need a debt service of $600,000 a year as a number, you can just say this is equivalent to this amount of mills. And so, if we don't have state funding coming in, then it's gonna be a mill increase. I don't think, unless we hit the megabucks or something, between now and then, it's gonna be an increase in the mill rate, because we haven't got the revenue on the other side in the short term. And then we can look at our debt service in total and extrapolate that out, because as, the high school bond, there's $3 million left on that, so we could figure out when that goes away. And we could project a schedule with just this variable as to what the mill rate impact would be.
Yeah, I suggested the June meeting because I thought maybe we would have some information from the legislature by then. might have been, give us a little more to work with, but, I mean, we can, I guess we can guess at it, but.
Well, there's two possibilities. More funding from the state.
Or less.
Well. So it's getting close to zero, so hopefully that they won't ask us to write a check. But, you know, we could frame that out, not in absolute, but order of magnitude as to what the impact could be. And then as we get into closer to June, we can probably say what the legislature's gonna do, at least for this year or the next 2 years. But I do think that we need to sit down and have that in-depth conversation.
You wanna make, Ron, if I could, through the chair, I wanna make a motion that, if you want me to, I'll make a motion on the floor this time to, on the May 24th meeting, that we meet with the council in a working session to go over the fundamentals of the project. Steve, are you available?
Yes.
That would be,
We just talked to him about that.
okay. And want to have it at the junior high auditorium?
Well,
Wherever we
have it in the library, there's plenty of room for council and the school board, and, I mean, we have room for, visitors and the audience too, so. I think it'd be a little easier in that setting. Might be easier in this room, actually.
Would that be at 6
If you wanna
o'clock?
have it here, then we can have it here. I don't care where we have it, as long as we have it.
Yeah, okay. So the motion's out there.
Do we have it in this room? No.
Well, we were talking about the library.
I think this would be a bigger room if we need more space.
So we can talk about how you want the table set up, we can have it set
Yeah,
up.
we just change it so it's kind of a square, everybody looking at everybody. That's,
Okay, so that's the motion.
Ken, would you be at that time be able to, with Mike and maybe some of the councils, put together a scenario for debt service in the future and a scenario of like, what different bond structures?
all right, you have a motion on the floor to have the meeting on the 24th of May.
To have a combined meeting with the council about the project and also about some funding scenarios for the project also.
We have a-
At 6
a
p.m.
second.
No, I'm trying to.
You second it? Yep. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? See the hands going up, so I guess that takes care of that. So it'll be the 24th at 6 o'clock here. All right.
Can I ask one question about the June 15th date? Do we want to pencil in that date for a public meeting? It's probably about as late as you can get if it's gonna do it before the end of the school year. At least leave it penciled into people's calendars. Is that something we wanna do?
Yes.
On the 15th?
15th, leave that as a penciled in date at this point?
I think it's very important that we get a public meeting in before this school year ends.
I agree.
I agree.
Yes.
Fortunately, we got snow days, so it pushed the end of the school year back a little
We
bit.
better not have those.
I hope not.
So whether that should be in the form of motion, I guess I'd make a motion to that effect.
All in favor? Okay, we'll have a public hearing, a public meeting on the 15th of June at 6 o'clock, be at the junior high school auditorium, I guess. Okay, that takes care of that.
Thank you.
Stephen,
Yes, sir.
you have updates on drawings?
I actually have no updates on drawings. We haven't made any changes since the last meeting. We have studied the responses from Jen's committee about how to add seats, and we started looking at increments of 50 seats. And there are two ways to, a little bit of board up, excuse me. There are two ways to add seats simply. One of them is to increase the length of the house And if we increase the length of this house, I think it's 6 feet, we pick up 2 rows, which is just about 50 seats. We have to be careful that the last seats in the house are not uncomfortably far from the stage. That's why frequently theaters will have a shallow part and then a steep part, because you sit here on a steep part, not here. So there's the difference. There's a lot of technical angles with lighting and projection. So we have to be careful. The other way is to go wider, and that's going to give us slightly fewer seats per square foot. So one of the things that's giving us economy in this building, aside from not 2 stories and no elevator, is this width. The wider this gets, the greater the beams are. So it's the longer the catwalk, it's the longer the beams, and when you add to the house, you add to the stage, usually. Now, when someone talked about an angled wall, were you talking about that?
Yes.
That creates expense, because a builder looks at that and says, piece of cake, it's a box. So what we're trying to do is to build as simple a box as we can. We have to insulate it very well for both heat and cool and acoustics. So the simpler the box is, the more we get, the better value we get. So I'm meeting with my consultant early next week, our theater consultant, to see if this, adding more seats back here will work in terms of the angles to the stage. If that will work, adding footage here will give us 50 seats at about $100,000. So you've increased your seating by 10%, and you've added, I mean, what's $100,000 between friends? So that's an easier one, but I think we should be very careful about adding too many rows back here, because there'll be no intimacy in the theater. You won't be connected. So we'll look at this, and we'll look at this, and it seems to me that if we can work out this way to pay for anything, we'll certainly work hard with you to add to the house. And I appreciate you understanding that that's not something you do after the bids are in and you're 100,000 over, you don't change your working drawings because you're aching to get going, to build. But we're ready to work with you. Chad, did you have some things for me on the high school? I don't think you did.
No, I did have a question. Now, I'm obviously not an architect, and I'm obviously not a theater person, but does the control booth have to be all the way at the back? The lighting booth have to be all the way at the back? So if the question was you need an elevator for the students, if we had one in a wheelchair to get up to the control booth, could it be at floor level, and then could seats be above it?
Well,
Could it be a steep pitch for those seats?
If you move this closer, which is probably what you're saying, for instance, if the control booth could be here, anybody could get to it in a wheelchair, and then these could go up steep behind it.
Right.
But this control booth blocks view, and you lose all the space behind it. I was looking at one where you would actually put the control booth like a submarine, actually below the floor here, and cut through, and the angles don't work. And if the angles of lighting, you can't bend light waves, you just can't. And so we've looked at that because that's the problem we have in all theaters.
What if we could bend like a touchdown?
That'll take us until May.
And we'll have a way to afford it then.
Corning High School actually does have their sound system in the middle like you're talking about, so I don't know if it works or doesn't work.
That's the sound booth, not the
That's
lighting
the
booth.
sound booth,
Sound
okay.
booth's in the middle.
I
Sound
thought
booth
you
is
were talking
already
about
right here, okay? That's the sound booth. But
Okay.
sound, right now, the latest theaters are miking the actors. They're all mic'd. And they mic the music usually. And so that's all through infrastructure. And in fact, some pretty progressive designs don't even have this in the house. They have it over here, and it's all videoed. And you don't, what they say is with the progress in audiovisual technology, you don't have to be in the room to sense what it sounds like, because this person is very, very interactive. That person is sitting there with the ears and saying, are they hearing okay? Am I hearing okay? They're out there as a member of the audience. The lighting booth is, that's all audio control from the stage. So they don't have to be in the midst. They just need to be up and over. Okay? We've been trying to figure out if we could make the audio booth, the video booth, the control booth a little narrower, even if we had to come up here and ramp up a few more feet and lift this. So we're trying to play with all sorts of stuff that's between the geometrics, the geometry of a theater, which is in the section. For instance, we'll definitely put things on top of the control booth that you can only get to by a ladder. It's just like a catwalk. The catwalk up here, ADA does not require you to have handicapped access to a catwalk. So you could also put equivalent technology on the roof of this. It's just that a control booth is a real inherent part of theater craft. And you have a lot of kids who aren't actors and dancers and singers who want to do theater, and they want to learn the technology of lighting and video control and computer access. That was more than you asked for. But we're trying to make this work, trying to get to as many seats as we can.
Steve, when do you, Performing Arts Center, we're calling it a Performing Arts Center. I think at one point in time, in the first initial go-around, that was a Performing Arts Center. When do you get to the point where you call it an auditorium? The terminology, to some people in town, Performing Arts Center seems extravagant versus an auditorium. Now, we go to the junior high auditorium, it doesn't have a lot of these features, but it does have a stage, it does have some things. I know it's semantics, but...
Well, I'd be open to it. Oh, you can call it Carnegie Hall if you want to.
Well, I'm just saying, that every time I say Performing Arts Center, it's like this big thing, and then I approach some people and I say auditorium, we're renting an auditorium. It's a different response. It seems to be, maybe people haven't...
My answer to that was, before you get it financed, you call it an auditorium, and after it's financed, you call it performing arts center.
That's one way to do it.
But it is at this point in time, probably, as far as the committee, when I go out into the public, it is this particular piece of the project is probably the piece that generates the most conversation as far as what we have. And it's a lot because we haven't gone out to the public and a lot of people haven't been on the page and stuff.
Kyle, you have a question?
Well, I'm back to the control booth question, and maybe it's more obvious to others than it is to me, but does the control booth have to be in the center, in the back?
Yes,
It does,
yes.
okay.
Jan, is any of these answers dealing with your questions?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I think
I didn't
the idea
want to
of-
walk away from it though.
I think what Ray's touching on, I think, we talk Performing Arts Center or whatever versus auditorium, I mean, yes, we're taking the existing auditorium and reusing that space, and we're building a new auditorium. Now, Performing Arts Center makes it sound pretty grandiose, but ultimately, it's a bigger auditorium than what we currently have. I mean, that might be a simpler way of explaining it to people, that really we need a bigger auditorium than the 200 seats we got now. Really the bottom line. And yes, there's some reconfiguration here, but that's ultimately what we're talking about, in reconfiguring the existing space and reusing that. I mean, yes, we took advantage of the 10,000 square feet that the state was funding at that time, and that still exists and is going to get repurposed. It's not going anywhere, but ultimately we need a larger auditorium than 200 seats, or whatever the heck it is.
And for conversation's sake, where are we holding the public meeting again? The junior high auditorium?
The junior high auditorium.
Because But because why? Why are we holding it at the junior high auditorium? Because it's the biggest space in our town, so we have to replace that. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Maybe it should be at the high school to demonstrate the overcrowding.
Yeah,
I was
let's do that.
thinking the same thing.
And one thing that I keep going back to is how many students are we gonna have in the school? I really think that if we're gonna build a school that encompasses 7 through 12, we need to have a space where we can have that whole student body meet.
Even though they're in two different sections? Even though the construction of the
Well-
building has
For
said
instance,
that
there are
it's
times
7
when
and 8.
I don't know, as a teacher, I'm thinking, as seventh grade, when my seventh graders are in a meeting, I think they need to see the honor society. They need to see some of the things that they can aspire to in this school when they are here, student of the month. So they need to be able to see that, and they're not gonna be able to see that in the gym.
But really, 500 seats, even if you consider 9 through 12, 500 seats won't seat the entire school, high school population and staff.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean,
That's-
aside from adding
That's
7, 8.
her point, that's where her point is.
Right.
Right,
I think he's saying won't even seat 9 through 12, let alone 7.
right, right.
Well, the high school brought their play over to the elementary school last week, because with staff and students, we have over 500.
We did it for us too.
And so, yeah,
Right.
and so, it would be nice for our kids to be able to travel there and go, oh, wow, look at this is where we'll be someday.
Has anyone here seen any examples of a foundation, a nonprofit, kicking in money towards a school project and a referendum being crafted in a way that's a matching situation, such as if the community passes referendum for a bond of X million, that the foundation would kick in $1 million towards the performing arts center?
We looked at that pretty seriously in Waterville when we were doing the renovation and fundraising at Trask Auditorium, and here's what we got back from most of your foundations, which is because you're a public institution, public school, if our foundation gives money to you for a theater improvement project, then we're subjecting ourselves to every public school in the state coming at us for the same thing. And we wouldn't have enough money to do what we need to do. And their feeling is public education is supposed to be paid for with public dollars. It's a responsibility of the community, so we pretty much got shut down completely. I mean, there are a few places that will do smaller grants. If you needed a curtain, for instance, and Jen, I think you were successful in getting money from Stephen King Foundation for a curtain. There are places that will do some small things, but we went for some big money there and got pretty much shut down completely.
Are there private sources of money? You know, somebody that wants their name on the front of the place to be able to call the Performing Arts Center, businesses, that sort of thing that we could tap into?
Gary Performing Arts Center.
There's a number of names that come to mind. I don't know if it was, I mean, for the sake of conversation, but is that also an avenue that could be pursued for either parts of this, enhancements to this, something that, you know, and the other piece I would offer, and I don't know if I've said this before here, but, you know, coming off from a dance recital where there were 800 seats, sold out 3 nights, that's 2,400 seats. We've got at least 2 dance companies in this town that if we could get them involved in this conversation, there's a big following of parents that automatically become part of our liked page, part of our conversation, part of our forum conversation, and I think there's an opportunity for us to tap into some of their opinions and input on what this place might be able to look like.
I've approached some of them, and even 600 is way too small for them to
Right.
consider
Right.
use. Yeah.
Where do they go now?
They go to
That's
West
the
Boston.
Performing Arts Center.
Which has how many kids?
800.
800 and change, isn't it like 816 or something?
When I asked one of the dance instructors, it was 800. She said, I can sell 2,400 tickets in 3 days. She says, I couldn't do it for less than 2,100.
Has anyone approached Colby? They're doing this, they're building right now, they're putting money into Waterville. We're right next door, we want to perform an art. I don't have any connections, but.
They're heavily focused on Waterville, downtown Waterville.
Mhm.
And there could be some benefit to potential people that trying to get employees and stuff if they're living here in Winslow.
Right, we're a bedrock community right next door, so.
Yes. See, I think fundraising is something that should be a community effort, and it takes time, it takes energy, it takes people to get out there and solicit. And I do think that's something that, as a community, we should be doing, parents should be doing, you know, some organized effort to, you know, Waterville bought the seats, and I've said this many times, get out there and say, what can we get? And then we come back to the table and say, look at the money that we've raised. We can add this to take care of lighting, to take care of sound equipment, to take care of seats, and offset that to the taxpayers. I think that is what we should be doing.
So build the box big enough, and then do some of that to help fill it with the other
Right.
components.
But we're doing that now, not
Right.
as the building's going on and we're trying to build this box and it's now empty.
Well, so we have alumni. I mean, are there? They're doing well? Successful school?
Well, I would ask a question about, I mean, for example, Coney and Augusta, they've got names all over their building for things that people have sponsored. I don't know if Stephen has any experience with this or such. How has this worked in public school projects?
Well, we did the Freeport Performing Arts Center about 7 or 8 years ago, and we went to OLB and asked for some money. I mean, we abut their store parking lot, the Freeport High School. Didn't get any. Very hard, you're absolutely right, very hard for a private foundation to give money to public schools because they think that the public should pay for that. Now, on the other hand, Joan Benoit got Nike to give them $1 million for their turf field. So, what do? I mean, a naming opportunity is a pretty nice opportunity. At this scale of a project, it's probably not a corporate naming, it's a private naming.
And that's what I see Fairmount and Augusta. I mean, I just, some lawyer and his wife has got his name on, the commons area, and has got their name on,
That's really unusual in
Yeah.
a public high school.
Yeah.
Almost everybody sells seats. You sell a seat. Or it costs,
they sell seats.
yeah, it costs $220 for Little League for us to buy a seat, and you sell them for $500.
If I could,
Just a minute, we have a question way down here.
Just a comment, I would be cautious about having hopes and dreams of renting the space. Winslow High School students are using the auditorium at after-school hours 6 days a week, almost the entire school year. When we bring over 7th and 8th grade, there's gonna be more groups of students wanting to use the space in after-school hours. There's not gonna be a whole lot of time for it to be used for other outside organizations that wanna come in and rent without displacing our student body.
How do they do it in Oakland when they have,
They cancel rehearsals.
Oh, I bet they make room for 2,100
Yeah, well, they don't do
seats,
as many
yeah.
performances this week either.
Yeah,
The rest of the weekend.
Yeah, they have fewer performances.
And we sit down as a performing arts committee anyway, and we schedule everything together. So this would be more people to schedule in.
They would just compromise.
But the nice thing is having the expanded band and chorus room. Something like if spring play was rehearsing and jazz band needed to practice.
Oh, yeah.
You can't
And we'll
have
be
the
using,
stage.
well, we'll be using those spaces certainly for rehearsals. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And that's the part of this whole thing that needs to happen anyway. With moving in 7th and 8th grade, we do not have enough chorus and band rooms to have two different things going on at the same time. Through creative scheduling, we have one band room that has chorus in it, and then when chorus isn't there, band's in it, so it's not gonna happen at the same time.
I guess, being on the town council, one of the things I can do is almost tell the town manager what to do sometime.
And he almost listens sometimes.
He don't listen very much. But I think it, you know, we were up at the Kobe Art Museum last weekend, and it's amazing the amount of money and the amount of interest that is there. I think it's somebody mentioned it, that the outreach that Kobe would have in the arts field, that's a potential. I think maybe Mike through, Mike Roy and some of his contacts, is to contact Kobe to see if there would be a possibility to meet with maybe Jen in the performance arts here, if there is that possibility, just to investigate that avenue. I'm not, what do you think?
Yeah, I could call Mike Roy and ask for a contact.
Yeah.
And make a phone call and just see where it goes.
And if the building committee would like us to pursue that, then that's something that we could do, but I would like to get a consensus if that's something we would want to try to do.
I don't think it hurts, I don't think we care what it's named, as long as we get it.
I think it's a great idea, and push like Bedrock Community, like, you know, they're gonna hire professionals coming into these buildings, they're gonna up the population. Winslow's a great place to live and have your kids go to school. Help us do that.
If they're not willing to have money, then maybe to get like an outreach program from Kobe for uses for our auditorium, you know, to bring their students to do stuff at our auditorium, rent, or, you know, in some other way, not just a donation, but on an ongoing revenue basis to look into those type of possibilities. That's, and to give you some
I
else.
think there's some, you know, a wide range of possibilities there that it's worth asking about, because I mean, they've long been supporters of schools in the area with what is older technology to them, which is new technology to our schools that they donate to schools on a regular basis, and that might include, you know, theater equipment, or, you know, you never know.
Right.
But
to
to
get
have,
that
open that
rapport,
line of
to
conversation
get that
is a
rapport
good
and
thing.
to include maybe Chad in that, this, you know, when we get to a certain point.
Yeah.
Now, how many students do we lose to outside private schools or charter schools? We've had a number a while back.
Around 40.
48, I don't remember, it was in the high 30s, as I remember.
And do we know where those kids are going to choose?
Some of them are going up to the ag school. Hinckley, thank you. Some of them are going to Snow Pond. There's a couple in virtual high school. I think that's about, yeah. There may be one at Baxter. I know there's one at Baxter, I just can't remember if it's Waterville or Winslow.
And we lose revenue on those students, right?
Oh, yeah.
How much is it per student?
If they're a resident pupil, we're gonna lose somewhere in the vicinity of $7,400. In Winslow, we lose about $7,400. High school age student.
And your number 40 is both school districts, correct? Or is that just one?
Now, do you feel this would help bring in students or keep students here so we don't lose future revenue?
I don't know, I mean, probably Chad would have a better answer to what the specific reasons are they're leaving, whether, you know, music students are leaving. I mean, you think of Snow Pond, you think of performing arts, you think of music. Did kids come into the guidance council and say specifically, because we got a lousy auditorium, or we can't do production here, I'm gonna go to Snow Pond? Not that I'm aware of, but maybe that's the case. I do know we've got some kids who said, you know, I'm really interested in this kind of this alternative educational programming that's going on at I can never think of the name of it. Yeah. So, I know there's some that wanted that kind of a program. If you're asking, am I concerned about that? That Jen's gonna lose a lot of kids interested in the arts and drama because we don't have a place for it, or, yeah.
Well, I was saying, right, and I was saying, you know, when we moved to Winslow, it was because of the school system and what the school system offered, and I just think having an extra piece like this will certainly attract parents.
Well, the thing you gotta remember is parents do shop.
Right.
My principals can tell you story after story after story of parents, and I can too, because when I was a Waterville principal, parents would contact me in the summertime and say, we're moving to that area. And would you be willing to give us a tour of the school and tell us what you got programmed, send us your program of studies? Because we're gonna select the community based on where our children are gonna get the best education. So they'll tell you the parent shopping. Without an auditorium, without a performing arts center, you're the only high school in the area that doesn't have one.
Chad, do you think it would help us attract more basketball students than what we currently get?
I think it would. I do. Some of us started working here and uprooted our families and moved here after we learned more about the quality of the K-12 level. Right.
Some of us came back.
Well, yeah, I can tell you, I moved from a school district where I was forced to live in the town that I worked, and it was one of the deciding factors why I left. And now I'm living in the town where I work because I chose to bring my family here because of the school, so. Sorry, Trish.
No, you're fine. Do you think that having such a large project with a huge amount of bond payment every year, do you think that takes away from the education of the school because you're paying so much for brick and mortar? I mean, you said 5 attritions, I'm assuming maybe one of them or 2 of them are a teacher or 2, maybe. So do you think that hurts the quality of education that Winslow can offer?
I'm worried about being able to continue to support the operational side of our budget. And I voiced that at the last meeting. Is
Right.
if we're struggling just to make ends meet on the operational side, then if we go into a bond that has a $600,000 payment, and we don't feel financially secure about that, will that have an adverse effect on being able to get the next year's up? Yeah, I am concerned about that. I want to make sure that we've got a firm plan, financial plan to handle this bond, so that it doesn't come back and be biting at us every operational budget that we're trying to pass in the next 5, 10 years.
Can you imagine if our budget sessions were worse than this year?
No, I can't imagine.
I try not to.
And I won't speak specifically to Winslow, because all the budgets in the state have been bad this year. Every single one that I've been dealing with, yes, it's been the roughest spring of trying to get budgets passed, because there's no money available. And people want to give you money enough to keep a quality school system, but at the same time, you can't be excessively burdening your residents because somebody else is shirking their responsibility. So everybody's kind of caught in the middle. I understand it, but it doesn't make it any easier trying to.
No. But if we don't have a decent school, more people are gonna come. You know, we want to attract families to this area because families are the ones that are gonna be shopping at the local stores, that are gonna be spending their tax dollars in our town, you know, at all the little shops and supporting all these businesses that pay bigger tax money. So if we don't have the schools to support the town's needs.
But what do you consider a decent school? What's your definition of that? Do you consider it a building, like a huge performing arts center, but then maybe having to get rid of 2 teachers? I mean,
Everyone who is going to be shopping for a school, for example, is gonna have a different definition of what a good school is. What a good school isn't, is maybe the junior high in the state it is. So we have to do something about that.
Right.
While
What goes
we're,
on in it,
what's that?
except for what goes on in it,
Class size
Are
is
you-
often a question that's asked when parents.
except for what goes on in it.
But what do you mean by that? Cause I know Winslow's a good school and we'll do
I know the
whatever.
building's,
Is that what you're
the
saying?
building is not in the best shape, it's taken really good care of, but what goes on in it is really good.
Yes, absolutely, I totally agree. And Winslow has that, so isn't it kind of sad that out of, like Winslow, Waterville, Oakland, Fairfield, we're behind? We're behind in the offerings, what we can offer to people. So if someone doesn't know what goes on in the buildings, because we do, we know this is the best place to be. But if they don't know that and all they have to look at is a, crumbling school, it's fine, I want the building to stay too. But you know what I'm saying, all the schools need work, but if we don't have what the other schools can offer, we're not gonna bring those families in. I don't think we're gonna lose anyone, because we are awesome. For the most part, they're gonna go for a reason.
Something we brought up in our meeting, I can't remember because we've had 2 subcommittee meetings I've been on this week, is the sense of pride for the kids too. And they're gonna feel better about their environment when they have their own chorus room, their own band room. Look at our auditorium. It brings in all those grandparents from Florida. I mean, our elementary concerts alone, you get the kindergarten and first grade concerts and the little kids run up to me and go, I have this grandfather, that grandfather, this aunt, that uncle. I mean, they're all coming in. And, I mean, I've got my own family that goes, I'll come to your concert, sure, I'll watch you wave your arms around and dance with the kids. So it's, you know, this positive impact of the kids feeling good, the community feeling good, spreading the word about what we're doing here. And I mean, this is my second year, interviewing at 5 different schools and feeling that sense of community and looking at the building going, wow, I have a space. I'm not on a stage in a corner, on a cart, in a closet. I have a teaching space. That's also attractive as an employee. So, you know, you have that. If I went to the junior high, I would have been like, all right, well, you know, when I went to the elementary school, I'm like, oh, really, this is all mine? Because I was in a corner, in a closet, going into classrooms. So, it's, you know, the sense of pride both for the staff and for the students.
Well, just getting to your point, I mean, obviously, what goes on inside the buildings is the most important part. But, you know, they do need the facilities to do what they do. And as far as people that are shopping for schools, the junior high as well as this CAP doesn't sell us well. I guess that'd be the way to summarize it.
I went to school when there was an annex building.
Yeah.
With
So
asbestos, and we had to walk across.
Right.
I had a crappy building that I went to school in, it was really crappy, I mean, it was an annex building. It was really bad, and I now own a business, so my point is that if we wanna spend all this money on brick and mortar and clog up the budget, cause that's essentially what you're doing. Because every year, you're not gonna be able to say, well, my operation cost went up, or, you know, the special needs department went up, because if that's more expensive to deal with those types of children and programming and dealing with the state, then, like, we can't consider raising the mill rate every single year, because we want this $10 million building, where the operational budget then gets cut back and cut back and cut back. That's my only point. My point is that, yes, the building does play into part when parents are shopping. You do have to look attractive to people looking around, but you don't need a $10 million building to have a good education. Because I didn't have a $10 million building, I had 3 separate buildings, so.
Problem with that separate building, the junior high, I mean, we haven't put money in that in a long time. And I go in that building every day, and I'm not sure it's gonna stay solid around us. And so, we've gotten to the point of no return. I mean, we lost a school day, when? Because it.
January.
Yeah,
Boiler
because
didn't work.
the boiler blew.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we're holding it together with gum pretty much.
I want, when we have our public meeting at the junior high, the 15th of June, at 6 o'clock, little plug for it. I want everybody to look around the auditorium, because it's a beautiful building, but I want you to really look close
look
at the
around and
windows.
yeah.
There's water damage around there, there's whatever it's made of, the plaster is falling off. I spent some time last week just kind of looking around, and there's some hidden issues that are starting to present themselves. And you guys teach over there, walk around the building and look, and you see
Buckets
them.
on the, buckets on the floor because we have leaks.
Is there a possibility of a public tour of that building during that public meeting? Like at the end, can we kind of like, here's what we're talking about, this is where the issues are.
5 to 6 or whatever
Right.
like that.
So people are really aware of what we're dealing with over there?
If you want to put it, if you want to put it in front of people, and make sure everyone in the meeting gets to see it, you could show the video with Shelley Phillips. She basically gives us a tour. But I'd love to also offer anyone who wants to stay after and really go look, that would be cool too. But if you wanted to actually make sure everyone in the meeting sees this,
Jen,
is that
yeah,
yeah,
a physical tour.
have you seen that video? I would like to.
Yeah, right.
There's too many people
Is
talking
that-
at once here. Eric has a comment, I guess.
Yes, I know it's on.
Well, I have a comment to that, and then I have something else I want to say, but the comment I have to that is, I don't sense that there's a lot of people that are in disagreement that we need to get out of the junior high school. I don't think that's the issue at all. The issue is just at what cost and what do we build? Now I'll say what I was gonna say earlier, which is, how many athletic fields do we have in this community? The reason we have those athletic fields is to allow our children to perform in front of the public, and they do it well. They do it very well. But there's a whole population of people that aren't athletes. Years ago, we had a kid by the name of Brian Scott as a quarterback in Waterville. And he was in the newspaper every weekend. We had a wonderful football team. He was a wonderful athlete. And a reporter called me and said, "Who's your number one student in your class?" And I told him, and he said, "Would he be willing to be interviewed? I'd like to know whether it bothers him that Brian Scott gets all this attention, it's in the newspaper every weekend." And so he did. Great young man who went on to a very prestigious college. And I remember they were just sitting off my office in the conference room, and I was kind of semi-listening to the interview questions, and he said, "Does it bother you that all these people come to these games, 1,000 people come to watch Brian Scott be quarterback of the football team, and nobody even seems to know about what your accomplishments are?" And the kid thought for a minute, and he says, "No," he said, "actually, I think it'd be pretty boring watching me study." And I thought, good for you, good for you. But you know what he was? He was also a thespian. And he was in every production that we had, a major part in every production that we had in that school. And there's a contingent of our student population that if you don't build this, they don't have a place to perform. And you have an awful lot of musical students that won't have the kind of audience that they deserve to have to perform. So I think we need to think of that population of people. I think about what you've done in Warnerville, Paula, and what the drama program has done for well over 100 kids every year. 100 kids out of a school body of about 540, that's 25–30% of your population that are involved in one of those productions. And that's roughly now, I mean, we keep taking seats out of there, but I think there's still about 800 seats in that auditorium.
And Eric, I'll piggyback on that. I'm a parent of a child that was not athletically inclined at all, and that's where he found his confidence. It's where he found who he was. It was his people, and it's not just 5 or 6 of them. You're talking 40 to 50 kids between music and theater.
And 70 doing drama.
Yeah.
And,
So it's, you have to keep that, like you said, you look at the money that we do put into the athletic fields in this town, and we're looking for a place for these kids to also demonstrate what they can do. All the way K, all the way up.
And I do wonder too. Oh, sorry.
I wanted to address one public perception issue, because I stated on Facebook tonight before I came here, I've been like the token public member at each of the meetings. And I said I've been impressed, and I think things have been very well considered throughout all the steps of consideration, and that people here have been working very frugally to constrain the budget and limit it and bring it down from where it started out at. The problem is that all the people you're asking to vote and who will be at the public meeting haven't seen that process. What I think would be incredible is if we had like an infographic or a PowerPoint, like maybe Stephen could put together something that shows, starting with the first drawings, all the bells and whistles and the price tag, and then we say, this is what we started with. So the public goes, oh, $10 million or whatever. And they go, so then we thought that was too much, and we did this. The price tag goes down in the corner. And then we did this, then we did this, and then we did this, and then we did this. And this is where we're at here tonight. And I think it would help bring them with a few graphics real quick to the point where they feel like they're on board, that this is the reasonable approach. You're not just like walking in the door with your diamond edition of what you want. That they need to have some window into all this discussion all the committees have done, and all the paring back that's been done. Or they're gonna wanna take it further. It's like if you go back to the junior high issue, there was a committee before this committee that had the whole discussion about the junior high. It was a very convincing committee. If you were in at meetings and you heard everything that was said, no doubt in your mind. But if you were to go back and open that door again now, it'd be like Pandora's box, I think, because then the conversation would begin again. But I'm hopeful that whatever that meeting is, some kind of presentation can be made that shows people we started out with much more, and we've brought it back to what we think is the minimum our students need.
We started out with $5 to $8 million.
We started out with much less.
$5 to $8 million, and now we're up to
We'll show
10.
them the third edition. And then you'll-
Yeah, I agree. Can I just say one more thing? I just wanna address, Trish, about, the budget and really strapping ourselves. And that all is part of this discussion and part of, the consideration. But the way that I feel about this now, this project, is that we're gonna do it now, I hope. We're gonna do it once, and we're gonna take this money for 30 years. So I really hope that while we're, marking it down and shaping it down, that we get what we need for not only today, because we're talking about how many kids can fit in it, but what we need for today. And I don't know if it'll take us for 30 years, but for as far into the future as we can think, because we're not gonna do it again. So I want, you know, when I hear the theater goes from 6 to 5, I'm like, oh, because I hope we do it now, we do it right, because we are going to be paying for this for 30 years. So $1 million is a huge amount of money, but we can't redo it.
And
So-
sitting, you know, and sitting through these meetings too, the topic comes up all the time about that half gym. And how when they had the opportunity, they didn't do it right. They cut corners.
Yeah, and now we're gonna do
are.
it again,
Right.
yeah. And we don't have the opportunity to do it again if we take this large amount of money, so I really hope we don't cut too much and shoot ourselves in the foot.
And we're getting rid of a whole building. I mean, that's the other thing. We're taking something to rebuild a whole building would cost, I don't know, 40, 50 million, to break down into $10 million, which I think is phenomenal.
And it's benefiting all the schools, everyone K through 12.
You have a question or comment?
Well, kind of a little bit of insight, you guys keep talking about Colby and for more coaches Colby, as well as the talk of people shopping schools. I'm currently involved in a community impact measurement. We got a grant from NeighborWorks, I work for KB Cap, and we're researching Waterville. And when Colby found out we were doing this, they took great interest. Because with the growth of the school, they're looking at the growth of faculty and placement of families. And they want to be able to present family-friendly, safe neighborhoods and what the schools in the area have to offer to their incoming faculty. So right now at this ground level would be a great opportunity for whoever meets with Colby to be able to present what Winslow has to offer as that bedrock community of Colby. Because these are things that Colby's currently looking at. I mean, they've already requested all of the research we're doing in Waterville, because they want to see what communities within Waterville are going to be good communities to be able to offer to their incoming faculty and their families as family-friendly, safe communities. So, you know, whoever meets with Colby, if you guys can present Winslow as that family-friendly, offers a little bit of everything within the schools, you know.
And here's where we need some help.
Yeah.
And did you see Winslow was voted the second safest town in Maine? Did you guys
Yes,
see
I
that?
saw that.
I mean,
I did.
we've got a lot to offer here.
Just to finish up, if anybody on the building committee or anybody listening in the public would like to interested in serving on that meeting with Colby, just contact Mike. Or,
If we get to that point, I would suggest we be very strategic.
Yes.
And not just anybody.
Right,
I'm not
right.
saying everybody who's not suitable, but I think we want to handpick.
Just send your applications.
Who's gonna participate in that.
And you're very well
Well,
prepared when you
we,
go.
Is it time for you to go, Whitney?
We're very close to the witching hour. Our next meeting will be the 24th, right here, but I'd like a different configuration of tables. Because
However you want it, we
I
can
can't
do
see
it.
everybody.
Yeah,
So
this is
somebody
not
up on that end wants to answer a question, I can
Actually,
see
where you
them.
should sit, Mr. Chair, is up there.
Yeah, I suppose,
Then you would see everybody.
but you're just trying to get rid of me, that's all.
I'll be right beside you.
All right, anyway, so our next meeting is 6 o'clock on the 24th, right here. And we will have a joint meeting with the council and the school board. And hopefully we will come up with some
And is this
information.
a public meeting? I would put an event out on Facebook. Okay, we'll do that.
Two elected bodies get together. It's gotta be posted and everything. So with that, thank you very much.
Remember, that's not the building committee. You're welcome as a public meeting, but that's a joint meeting between the town council and the school board.
That's it.